What is going on, guys? It's your boy Slick, and today we're here to talk about lineups. This is going to be the first of many videos that I'm going to be doing about lineups. The first thing I thought I would do is just give you a broad idea of what lineups are, what makes a good lineup, how you should start to structure your lineups, and then later on down the line, weeks from now, whenever I decide to do more of these, I'll go into depth in certain BRs and certain trees and tell you which I think is the best lineup, what kind of vehicles I like to run at that tier, and stuff like that. Now, the information I'm going to give you in this video should help you decide what you want to do as you progress down the tree. So this is going to be the first video. This is going to be the video I send everybody to if they don't understand the SP system when I'm talking about that. Now, if you don't know what the SP system is, you're in the right spot. Spawn points. Everything in this game revolves around spawn points. Every vehicle, when you spawn in a tank RB battle, revolves around spawn points. And of course, I'm only talking about tank RB right now and lineups because tank RB is my most popular game mode. It's what a lot of people on this channel play, and it's my favorite aside from Sim. Sim has a different type of system, and maybe I'll go into depth in that a little bit later down the line. But what I think you need for a good, well-rounded lineup is some type of backup vehicle, something you can always rely on to get maybe a couple last-ditch effort kills, whether it be you're losing the game or you just need an extra spawn to help your team and give your team that little bit of oomph to win the game. You have your main tank, the one that you're either grinding or what you're really excited to play or what fits you really well at that BR. You have an AA vehicle of some sort. You have a plane of some sort. And you have a light tank or a scout tank that can go get caps fast, flank fast, and really is like kind of just broadens your tool belt. Now, what I'm talking about here is a 5-tank setup or a 5-slot setup. Obviously, if you shell out a couple of Golden Eagles, you can expand your lineup to longer, but I'm just trying to direct this towards the new players, and usually the new players aren't going to have 7 slots unlocked in their hangar. They're just going to have the 5 that you can get with unlocking via lions and whatnot. So here we look at my top tier German lineup. This is very reminiscent of all of my lineups in the game and how I feel a lineup should run. We'll get into the SP cost in a little bit, but the first thing I want to talk about is how I run this lineup. I have a light tank that I like to flank, that I like to scout with. This is my RU-251. What I use this tank for is the first spawn. I spawn in this tank, I rush as hard as I can, get as many spawn points as I can via capping, flanking, shooting tanks on the side, do as much damage in the shortest amount of time as possible. After that, judging on how the battle's going, I'll either spawn in my Saber with rockets or my Leopard. The Leopard is my go-to tank in this lineup. This is my baby. You guys know I love this tank, but I don't run it first anymore because when you run tanks first, there's a high chance of you dying. Plus, the SP cost on a main battle tank or a medium tank is a little bit more than a light tank of its tier. Especially being that the RU-251 is tiers lower, it's always considered a bottom tier tank. So when it's considered a bottom tier tank, it's a lot cheaper to spawn than a top tier vehicle. And that's where the SP's cost comes into it. So I'm going to throw a graphic up on the screen, and you will see the SP cost. When you spawn into a battle, you get 400 spawn points, or 450 spawn points, excuse me. You can then use that to buy a vehicle. You can never spawn a plane first. You will never have enough SP. You gain SP by killing tanks, capturing objectives, getting assists, repairing enemy tanks, or repairing friendly tanks. You don't want to repair the enemies. And you will progress through that. So it's always a good thing to keep your eye on your SP counter and see what you can do. This is a big reason why people rush caps and cap and then spawn in a plane, because they know they will get enough SP if they're in a low enough tier tank where they can rush the cap, capture the point, get SP, and then run back, spawn in their plane, and go to work. So you're looking at the graphics here. Heavy tanks cost a lot more when they're top tier than any other vehicle. There's a reason for that. They obviously have armor. And when a heavy tank's top tier, it should be one of the best tanks in this BR setting. The T10 is a little bit of a kind of a side thing to talk about, considering it is top tier. I believe it gets lowered SP costs, considering the MBTs of its tier can pretty much compete with it in every aspect. Now, all these numbers are not 1,000% correct. It's hard to gauge this. I tried to do it in a custom battle, and they didn't give me SP costs in my custom battle for some reason. So I did this all on live games So you can imagine that this was kind of painstaking to try to take out every vehicle type and get top tier and low tier to record my data. So there might be a little bit off, but they're going to be in this range. So you'll notice that the light tanks are a little bit cheaper when they're top tier. ATGMs are a little bit more expensive than mediums at top tier. And SPAAG doesn't change within the second spawn. Now, this is the second thing to mention. If you spawn a tank once, you take it out on the battlefield, you spend your SP cost on it, your spawn points. If you want to take another tank out of the same class or other classes, the SP cost will rise. So this negates the fact that you can spawn in, not do anything, and spawn in another vehicle. Most of the time you can't do that. Even if you have an AA, most of the time you can't spawn in that AA unless you do something of use. That being said, AA is very, very cheap, so you can spawn an AA vehicle almost always as long as you do something competent on the battlefield. Whether that be help somebody repair, or cap a point, or help cap a point, or track an enemy and get an assist. So just remember that. Knowing what vehicle to use at what times is very important for this, and taking vehicles that are super expensive out early on in the game, even if you're lower tier, it might not be the best idea. So like I said, I'm not going to talk about tactics in this video. This is more of just the general understanding of how RB tanks work. A lot of people like to take out heavy tanks right off the bat, not really thinking about SP in mind, and when they die right off the bat, right out of the gate, because they didn't go for the cap, or they didn't wait, or they didn't play super defensive, and they get all worked up on why they can't spawn again and get mad at Gaijin for that when the system's in place for a reason. So hopefully this gives you guys, opens your eyes a little bit on how to play tank RB. Obviously this isn't to the veteran players. You guys know what you're doing. You guys know how to set up a lineup. Try setting up a lineup that's equally balanced, where you can spread the SP cost around. As you can see here, I have no heavy tanks in my lineup. The SP cost to run this is very cheap aside from my Saber. And I could usually get along with just a couple of kills and spawn 3 or 4 times with this lineup. One more thing to note before we leave. I will make a video on this separately down the line, of course, when we get into more advanced lineups and when I get very specific with it. But planes have a cost too. Planes cost a lot, around 800 to 900 SP if they're fully loaded off the bat. Fighters and fighter bombers, attackers, bombers, and fighters all get separate classifications. So I think fighter bombers and fighters are in a separate category from attackers, and attackers and fighter bombers are very similar. And then we have bombers, long-range strategic bombers. If you take a fighter out, it doesn't negate anything towards your attacker. So this is a very key thing to note. If you take out a fighter and you want to spawn in a backup fighter, it is going to double the cost. So if I spawn in a CL13 and I have a backup CL13, I die in my CL13, it's going to cost me not 900, it's going to cost me around 1200, or even more, 1200 to 1400 to spawn in that CL again, because it's a fighter. If I had a bigger lineup with, let's say, 6 or 7 slots and 2 aircraft, which I run in my British tree already, running 2 aircraft is a different type of lineup, but you can spawn in an attacker separately from a fighter, costing the same amount of SP as a first spawn plane would. So you can get 2 800 SP spawns for the price of 1 second fighter spawn, if you get what I'm saying. So you spawn in, let's say I have a CL13 and an Arado in. If I take out my CL13 and die, instead of paying 1300 or however much it is for another fighter, I can take the Arado out for the same price as the Arado would cost right off the bat. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helped some of you guys. If it did, let me know in the comments down below what is your favorite lineup to run, and I'll leave a comment down below saying lineups below or something like that. Go to that comment thread and tell me what lineup you'd like to see me take a look at. When I do these, I will get very in-depth in terms of SP costs and stuff, because that's the real important gritty stuff that you need to know, is the SP cost of each lineup. It won't be so much about reviews of the vehicles I pick. It'll just be kind of how I play that lineup and the fluid movement between that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.